So I want us to have a conversation. So it will be a one-way street now, but at the end, I hope you will tune in with some questions. So we'll be finding out what is happening with the Hellshire Beach. Why is it happening? What kinds of solutions are available? And what should be our next steps? So I will not be prescribing any solutions here, but bringing awareness again to all the steps that need to come together to protect the shoreline, and then proposing what we should do next. So why are we having this conversation? Hellshire Beach. So this is a photo from about 2010, 2011, when the beach was already eroding, but at that time it was still a very popular beach. It is a place that people from Kingston, Portmore, Spanish Town go. This would be a typical Independence Day celebration where the beach is packed with people. People are going out on boats. People are buying their fried fish and festival, and people are just frolicking on the beach. So this is typically what you'd see at Hellshire on a holiday, especially a public holiday, or just on some Saturdays. So it's the closest white sand beach to the city of Kingston, and so it's been very popular. It's also a spot where people come, people who are visiting Jamaica, who are visiting Kingston, is one of the spots you would take them to eat fried fish and bami, or just to go to the beach. So it's been very important as a recreational spot, as a destination for the people of Kingston and the metropolitan of Kingston in overall. It is also obviously a home for the people who live there, people who work there, and the fishermen especially earn their livelihoods there. The people who own the shops, this is a key part of their livelihood. So what has happened to the beach? This is a picture from 2010, so similar to the one I just showed you. And this is 2016. So look at the transformation. There's a nice sandy beach here. By 2016, most of the beach was gone, only in this area where the groin is here. And the beach is essentially coming right next to the properties along the shore, which used to enjoy a nice beach in front. This was 2016. This video here is from yesterday. So absolutely no beach. I'm standing in one of the shops which is about where these are the pictures were taken. So just for people who do not know where this beach is, so this is Kingston. This is the Kingston Harbor here. Hellshire Beach is close to Portmore, west of Kingston Harbor, the southwest of Kingston Harbor. It's right here in this corner here. And of course, this is on the south coast of Jamaica. So key points of interest close to Hellshire, you'd have Fort Clarence Beach, you'd have Waves Beach here. These are still nice sandy beaches. And then coming down along the same coastline, you get to Hellshire. So this part of Hellshire used to be part of the beach too, but this here is the main beach where we know as Hellshire Beach. And on the western end of this area is Sugarman's Beach. So this beach right now is still in fairly good condition. Some of it at least are not as bad as the Hellshire area. So zoom in a little bit closer. Here again, the Hellshire Beach. So this is where most of the shops are. This is around here. Most of you will probably know about Prentice. It's around here. There's some rock revetments are on this side of the headland. This part of the beach, a little bit of it still exists. The shops are along here, and there's absolutely no beach along here. And this is Sugarman's. Note you see the sargassum weeds that have been piling up, which is another problem in itself. That has been impacting us over the last several years. Let us look at how the shoreline has transformed, over many years. So we go back as far as 1968. So I just showed you right here where Hellshire Beach is. This is how it was. The beach on this side was very nice, really nice white sand beach. We had a nice salient formation right here where the shoreline just out here, right behind these shallow reefs. And in the hinterland, you have the wetland undisturbed. So this is before development happened. This is before people started living in the area and developing the area. The area was flush with nice white sandy beach. Essentially, the Banton offshore was quite good. You can see the reef platform here was quite well developed, acting as a barrier to waves. So no doubt this would have been really shallow, holding the beach in place. Now, by 1980, when you look over here, development started to happen. So the road was cut here. The roundabout wasn't in yet, but there's an intersection here, and some development started to happen. Some clearing of vegetation along the beach would have happened. By then, people would have been coming out here on a Saturday or in the evenings to go to the beach. The beach would have been very wide. You see waves here. You can't see the reefs very well, but you do see waves breaking on the reefs here. So reefs still doing a good job in creating a nice beach. Very wide beach coming all the way down here, even though the road would have been cut here, this road going up to Fort Clients. All right, so that was 1980. Come now to 1991. Area is fairly well developed now. This is more like what we've come to know. Many of you on this call would have been going to the beach in these days. You students, you would not have known about this yet. But the shops are here. Look how far back the shops are from the coastline here. Up here they're a little bit closer here, which probably would have been the start of the problem. Building too close to the shore. Over here, we're also losing some of the nice white sandy beach. There's some clearance of the dunes here, which would have contributed to the problem that ensued. But for the most part, beach still exists. Now come to 2010, and what you see here is the structures have been put in place. So a revetment would have been put here. I guess people would have wanted to protect the development that was really close to the shoreline. So they put some kind of boulders structure here, and a groin was also implemented here. There's some hint of the groin in this photo. I'm not sure if it was in place then, but it was certainly here. Of course, by 2010, some structures here. The beach has been eroded here already. One thing to note also, when you look at this beach here, you see a crenulate type shape. This beach juts out, whereas here the beach is straightening. So this is a sign that the beach is eroding. And you can see this kind of convex shaped beach here in these two photos. So this is going back to 2006 and comparing it to the 2010 image that we just saw. So the beach, you see the convex shape here. What this is saying is that by even 2006, the beach was holding up. The reefs are probably doing a good job in breaking the waves coming in. There's still some seagrass vegetation here, but by 2010, the beach was straightened out, so the erosion would have started to happen by then. So two hurricanes hit Jamaica in that period. Well, before 2006, there was Ivan, which hit the south coast of Jamaica, and then Dean followed in 2008, which also hit the south coast and had significant damage at Hellshire. So that damage might have been showing up already well, we were noticing it in 2010. So when we do a shoreline comparison using satellite data, we can see clearly what has been happening to the shoreline. So the green line that you see here, this is from the early days. This is the 1968 shoreline. So when you put the maps together and you plot the shorelines, this is from 1968. This is how far out it was. Then 1980, it was here, and then the structures were in. So this hasn't moved any at all because of the structures, but everything else has been eroding. So the green here shows how wide this was, and no doubt it started to erode and came all the way back to here where it is present day. So that is very significant. Some of these straight shorelines are ones we mentioned in 2010. Interestingly though, while Hellshire has been eroding, Sugarman's in areas has been accreting. And no doubt that is probably because the sand is moving from Hellshire going down to Sugarman's Beach. Now, at the northern end, that is where you've had significant erosion, even more so than at where we're calling Hellshire Beach. It's just not so noticed because this has been the popular beach, but even more erosion has been happening here. It's just been eating away, and the sand has just been going. When you look at it in numbers, we are seeing over the period of 2000, this is just from 2002 to 2021, you would have seen up to 70 meters erosion north of the Hellshire Beach. At the Hellshire Beach itself, we've lost 29.7, so almost 30 meters of beach. And people will tell you the story of when they went, they used to play volleyball, you could race your friends out to the water. There was this much beach. So this is evidence of it. And as I said though, while Hellshire has been eroding, Sugarman's has been accreting. So Sugarman has gained beach up to 26 meters of beach. So no doubt that a lot of the sand that was here would have gone down to here. So a little bit about the coastal processes that are driving the change. So the waves predominantly come from, on the south coast of Jamaica, come from the southeast. The waves are essentially coming from northeast trade winds. They're wrapping around the island, the eastern tip of the island, and coming across Kingston Harbor, offshore the harbor, and coming up to Hellshire area, from southeasterly direction. Now, to understand the processes, you have to know what happens with the reefs here. So when waves come in, what they would do is that they would break on top of these reefs. When the waves break, that acts as a sort of pump in pushing the water flow in this direction. So when this happens here, it would reduce the wave activity that's coming that could erode the beach. But what it also does, it generates a current flow in this direction, so in the westerly direction. So no, this explains why sand would be moving from Hellshire and going down to Sugarman's Beach because of this westerly drift of currents caused from the waves breaking on the reefs. The waves breaking on the reefs, however, historically would have caused this buildup of shoreline here. So because of this protection, the shoreline would have built up, because the reefs, when they're in good condition, provided good shelter. So when we look at the temporal variation in beach width, what we see here, so we've plotted 3 different areas. At Sugarman's Beach, which is this one here, the blue, well, they're all blue, but this middle one here, Hellshire is this one here, bottom one, and north of Hellshire, where we've seen significant erosion also, is this top one here. So when you follow these, you see beach was fairly stable, eroding a little bit, but fairly stable. North of Hellshire Beach especially was accreting for sure. And then it reached the 2000s, and then it happened. Bam, significant beach erosion. As I said before, those 2 hurricanes, Ivan in 2004 and Dean in 2008. So the reports, the anecdotal reports, I'm talking to the fishermen, they say that it was after after Dean that they started to see most of the erosion happening. So that would have happened, and it's been downhill since, excepting at Sugarman's Beach, where there has been accretion. So when you look at quick simulation to let you see how Hurricane Dean would have impacted the area. So, because the hurricane tracked on the south side of Jamaica, and hurricanes having like an anti-clockwise wind direction, would have pushed waves into this area of the shoreline. So waves would have focused along the south side of the island and would have been pushed into this area. So no doubt you would have had significant impacts on the reefs, especially. It would have degraded the reefs, physically damaged the reefs, and would have caused damage to the shoreline, both during the hurricane and in the aftermath, where the protection that was being provided by the reefs was no more. What about the benthos offshore? So when we use satellite imagery again to look at the benthos offshore, so mapping what the seabed looks like. So the yellow is essentially unconsolidated sediment, so that's essentially sand. The gray here, these are reef outcrops. The green is vegetation, so this would be like seagrass, sparse or dense seagrass. On land, we have the green here, the darker green represents vegetation cover. So this was in 1971, and when we fast forward to 2020, look at the difference. So I'm going to go back and forth from between 1971 and 2020. So pay attention to the vegetation, the seabed vegetation, so seagrass coverage in this area. So I go back and forth. You'll see the significant difference. So there's a lot of seagrass coverage in this area here. And remember, we're saying this is one of the areas that has shown the most, this is the area that has shown the most erosion. So there's no doubt that this seagrass, the loss of seagrass here has something to do with this. What we're not sure about is whether the sand eroded and went offshore and covered the seagrass, or whether there was a loss of the seagrass bed. And because the seabed was now loose and the seagrass no longer served the purpose of holding the seabed together, that precipitated the erosion. We're not sure what happened first, but that has happened. Look over here too at the coral reef coverage. So you could see in 1971, you had reef outcrops, that were outstanding, basically above the low water mark. But in 2020, the only thing you have left is this. You can still see this now, this area now when you go there. This is still in existence. So no doubt, that there has been change to the reef coverage, and that would have caused some erosion because you have bigger waves coming across. When you also look at vegetation cover, you see a difference. The road would have been cut, vegetation has been cleared. So, and this is a wetland area, so there has been modifications to that also. And no doubt, if there's more runoff, there's more underground seepage coming out, that would have impacted the water quality of the area, and which would have impacted the health of the coral reefs. And if the coral reefs would have degraded, then you would have had beach erosion. So this is what a healthy coral reef is supposed to look like. This is what the reefs at Hellshire look like. That's from poor water quality in the area. What about the people? So the area is where people live. The area is where people do business. They have their restaurants, they have bars. What has happened though is that the settlements have been informal and as such uncontrolled. So you have solid waste disposal, which has been a problem. Sewage is just underground septic tanks. So what would have happened is that sewage over time would have seeped underground, come back up, gone in the water table, make its way out in the marine environment. You'd have had poor water quality. If you were there in the 2000s enjoying the beach, no doubt you were in poor water with poor water quality. Now, a little survey that was done says that people, or even 16% of the people, have been there for about 46 years. So there are people who've been living there for a very long time. So this is their home, and this is where they do business. But the people have been also part of the problem. They've been building closer and closer to the water's edge, and the kind of building that they've been putting up has been making the erosion even worse than just the destruction of the corals. So when you look at these pictures, so this is from yesterday, and you could see construction going on right as we speak. This is new construction happening. So basically happening in the water. So in summary, the erosion appears to be due to a combination of factors. Degradation of the reef structure, and that's been caused by marine pollution from human activity, and the hurricane waves, Dean and Ivan, would have done significant damage to the reefs. And there's been degradation of the sand dunes and seabeds. Now, those started it, but it was made worse by people building closer, building vertical structures on the beach. So the beach has no room to self-heal when that happens. There's been increase in human activity. More and more people have been living in the area. There's a ground there which was helping to hold some of the beach in place that was degraded. Fisherman's Corp have subsequently built part of it back, which is maintaining the little part of the beach that is there now. There's been coral diseases, there's been climate change, which has led to warmer waters, and corals don't thrive very well, especially those in the near shore, in the near shore and in the shallow parts of coral reefs. So all of those things have made the situation even worse. So it's a really bad situation right now, right? There's significant revenue loss to the people who are there, especially now during the pandemic. People have been going there much. You know, with that comes poverty. With poverty comes crime. There has been reports of illicit drug trade, you know, and there's been many reports of violence. You know, the area is going as the beach has gone, unfortunately. And the reality is that another hurricane like Ivan and Dean, if that happens, especially since people have moved further out, there'll be catastrophic damage. So what are the available strategies for coastal protection for a place like this? What can you do? You can do nothing. You can choose to do nothing. We can leave it alone. We could say, this is a lost cause, you know, that's it. Do we want to do that to the people who live there and work there? How do we manage them? So if they are there and there's a hurricane coming, if there's another big hurricane, we could say, all right, we're leaving them there as they are, but we're going to move them out when a hurricane is coming. So we could manage the hazard that they're exposed to. That is just a hazard from the sea. Or we could say, look, we need to retreat. We need to move out these people. We need to stop this informal construction that is happening, and we need to move people back. We can strengthen the ecosystem. That is very necessary, you know, but it will take some control of what is happening on the land first. We have to control the sewage, especially the garbage disposal, what we do to the wetlands. You know, we have to control that, because whatever happens on the land makes its way into the marine environment and destroy the coral reefs. We can do more hard engineering solutions. We can do what we call advance the shoreline. We could, you know, introduce beach nourishment, add sand to the beach. You know, we could build breakwaters, groins, those kind of structures that help to attenuate the waves that are coming in, that perform the function that the coral reefs are supposed to be performing. You know, we could use a really hard measure we call holding the line. That is saying, forget this beach thing. Let us build a hard shoreline to protect the people, the buildings that are there. So that is one solution, you know. But we could look at combining these different solutions. Whatever we do, we definitely have to strengthen the ecosystem, you know. But we can hold the line for some areas. We could do beach nourishment in some areas, groins and so on. You know, we could do a combination of things. So in 2012, this was one of the solutions we suggested, we proposed. So the main solution, in fact, this is after we looked at several options. So this is a combination of a number of different solutions. So we're using breakwater here. This would be like a submerged breakwater. So you could enjoy the beach and not see this. So this is essentially a reef-like structure. We saw that there were waves coming in here, especially in this gap in this reef here. So we said, let us build a breakwater here. This groin here, we said, you know, it currently comes out here. We said we'd turn it to also allow it to provide some sheltering, and also the currents that I mentioned that are going in this westerly direction. You know, this would help to create a sort of shadow zone so that this area is protected from sediments, the sand being brought out. We said, you know, let us widen the beach with sand that we dredge from offshore. So we get some sand, some of the sand which should have gone offshore from what was there originally. We bring some of that sand back and use these structures to kind of hold it in place. Said, this is our last cause here. We hold the line here, or put a revetment in here. On this side where there's not much beach here, you know, we won't create the wide beach that was there initially. So let us still create some beaches here. So you enhance the entire shoreline. And here where the beach is still eroding, let's also put some sand over here. So this was all part of the solution that was proposed in 2012, which has been knocked around in different agencies, you know, and the Fisherman's Corp, they've taken the initiative to raise some funds, and they've put in part of this ground, which is what is holding the little beach that is there now. That is saving the little beach that's left, you know, but nothing really has been done since that time. So other things that would need to be done, we need to strengthen the ecosystem. You can propagate corals and put them as part of the existing coral reefs or create new reefs with them. You know, projects, these are things that we've done even in Jamaica here, in the Grail, for example. This is something called BioRock. You could build a frame that looks and put propagated corals on this. You could pass low-grade electricity through this grid, which allows for calcification, and allows for the corals to essentially grow at a much faster rate than they would normally grow. So this has been a proven technology that has been done, not just all over the world, but right here in Jamaica. In the Grill, we've done this as a mitigation measure for our project. So this kind of thing can be done. However, you can't do this until the water quality improves. And as I said, you have to solve the problems on land before you do this. But this is going to be an important part of the long-term solution. So the overall master plan, it has to be a holistic approach. You have to take all things into consideration. You know, it's not just the coastal protection. I just gave, you know, an example, but, you know, we could look at, and if we're updating to what the shoreline is now, we could give you 10 different kinds of coastal protection solutions that could work depending on budget and so on, to bring back not necessarily beach that was there before, but some level of beach that will be good enough. So that is the easy part as far as coastal engineering is concerned. The harder parts are to deal with the needs of the people. You know, strong stakeholder engagement is, of course, very necessary. There are issues that will be associated with land ownership. If you have a great master plan and you want to redo the whole area, moving people from where they live now, you know, relocation, those will always come with problems. There's a need for more public awareness though, you know, but the reality is that, you know, even though people might know better, they can't do better because doing better is very expensive. So, you know, there are lots of social issues that just have to be considered. Policy decisions, you know, what are we allowing this kind of asset, you know, to just wither away? Like I said, it's been almost 10 years since we have been talking about this, and this Fisherman's Corp has been making presentations to various bodies about this. You know, who's responsible, who's doing anything. The long term has to involve looking at the ecology of the area, making sure the ecosystems are healthy again, the mangroves in the wetland, the seagrass offshore, they all have a role to play in the shoreline stability and the health of the environment in general. And we have to build for resilience. As I said, if a hurricane comes, these people will be in trouble. So whatever we do to the shoreline has to be able to withstand the future climate change impacts, stronger storms that we expect, sea level rise. All these things have to be captured in a master plan for the area. That is essential, needs to be done. You know, and the big picture. Now, this is my final slide. You know, this area has been in the news so many times. You know, somebody needs to take responsibility and do something about this. The Fisherman's Corp, I know they've been very persistent, and they've done their part, and nobody's listening. Let's talk about it. Thank you very much for listening.